Ho ho buddies, welcome to Borderline Games. I'm Gareth and today we're playing Chaos Head. Last time, we had a look at that photo that we were sent by Shogun. And we did some photoshoppery on it. Some wizardry with some Photoshop essentially. And discovered that there's actually an image of us running away from the crime scene. We freak out. We're like, that's got to be fake. What the hell is going on? And then we have the idea to search the forums for new gen stuff, related things, and also about this new band that apparently foresaw each of these murders in the lyrics of their songs. Now, the lyrics of the songs aren't available online, so we decide to go to, or at least they're not officially available online. They're available through people talking about them in the forums, but they're not actually published anywhere online, I think. That's what it was. So we decide to go to one of the gigs, which is a big deal for Takami. Or Takumi. Whatever his name is. The protagonist. So we go to the gig, expecting the lead singer to be this demon girl that we saw kill with the crucifixes. It turned out that it wasn't her, but it was somebody else, and they had like a mic stand that looked like a sword. And then I guess we left. Is that right? And now we're going on the next day, I think. We're turning toward 107 and we saw something very strange and it stopped me dead in my tracks. Let's go. I'm pretty sure I got 80% of that correct, so you know. I'm doing a good job here. What was that? Across the crowds of people, on the stairs to 107, stood a girl that stuck out like a sore thumb. Was she holding a sword? The colour and aura it gave off felt somewhat similar to the mic stand Fez had been using at the concert. In fact, I'd say it was perfectly fair to think of them as the in fact, I'd say it was perfectly fair to think of them in the same vein. But even then, it was still one massive sword. It might have been even longer than Fez's mic stand. To my surprise, the girl was wearing a Sumai uniform. I couldn't make out her face from this distance, but despite holding something so conspicuous, the girl seemed relaxed as could be. She simply watched the people walk down the street from atop the stairs. Talk about bravery. I was seriously impressed. I couldn't believe she was walking around right smack in the middle of Shibuya with that massive toy sword. Must have had one hell of a humiliation fetish. Was the sword a cosplay prop from some new anime? Then again, I was pretty familiar with all the anime they were airing. Was there really a series with a sword like that? Had it slipped under my radar? Of course, walking around Shibuya holding one would be too much for me, but the sword itself was pretty damn cool. Kinda wanted to get one, honestly. TBH. I wondered if I could get one in Akiba. Even better if I could order it online. Big bro! Oh yeah, that's right. So the last thing that we saw was Takumi hanging out with his younger sister in the shop, and then he tried to escape, and then that's where we came across the woman with the sword. 100% caught up. I was suddenly struck with an elbow to the back. The pain almost made me black out and collapse on the spot. I turned around to find Nanami with her hand on her hips, sullen as could be. Were you trying to run away from me? Ugh. I know I took way too long to decide, and I'm sorry for that, but that doesn't mean you can just go and leave me behind. Don't you realize how mean that is? Ugh. I lazily shook my head from side to side. You big jerk! I hope your phone hit you with so many EM waves that you die of kidney failure. fuck was her deal? Now I feel like an idiot for trying so hard to pick the right phone for you. So, I'm not even going to try anymore. The same model as mine is good enough for a jerk like you. Nanami forcefully grabbed my arm. I'll make sure you sign the contract today if it's the last thing I do. And until that phone's in your hands, you're not going anywhere. I get it already. Let go of me. Okay then, hurry up and move your butt. I didn't have a clue why Nanami had gotten so worked up. She really was a pain in the ass. Nice little Star Wars transition. In the end, Nanami picked out a model with ease, as if she hadn't just spent 10 years trying to choose. After spending around an hour on the contract and other technical stuff, I tried to finally head back home with my phone, but Nanami stopped me. I'll set your phone up for you, so why don't we stop by MCD, Mackie D's? Without waiting for a response, she grabbed me by the back of my collar and started dragging me to the nearest Mackie D against my will. Knowing you, you'll just chuck your phone into a random corner of your room, without even bothering to turn it on. So I'll make things nice and easy for you. God damn it, how much longer was she planning to hold me hostage? And out of all the places she could have chosen to do it, why Mackie D's? The inside of the Shibuya Mackie D was the embodiment of chaos. There were shitloads of people, and none of them ever shut the hell up. The sheer amount of DQNs was off the charts. At the table right next to us sat 3 DQN tier mothers, with dyed brown hair, and to make things even better they'd brought their kids with them. They just left the children. 3 little crotch goblins with red highlights, to be specific, to run around the restaurant squealing their heads off, and instead of controlling them they just kept on chatting away. At a different table was yet another group of DQNs, this time made up of 4 high school guys all laughing like obnoxious pricks. Next, 2 high school girls complete with baggy socks and dyed brown hair sat opposite to each other, hyper-focused on their phones. They didn't even bother talking. The future of this country, eh? Beside them was a snoring middle-aged businessman, slumped down on his table, making it pretty obvious that he was skipping out on work. But what really made me do a double take was this table close by with a group of 5 elementary schoolers. Some boys, some girls, they all sat there with their little school bags on the floor, happily chatting it up with each other as their legs swung back and forth beneath the table. Underneath would have done, that's fine. So considering that it was co-ed, was it a mixer? It was, wasn't it? Weren't they elementary schoolers? Well, regardless, the point is that as far as the eye could see, there were groups of people that I avoided like the plague. Nanami had no problem at all. Well, what was that? Relaxing at a place like this. Me, on the other hand, just setting foot in here only served to make my headache and nausea 1,000 times worse. Wait, why the hell did I have to play along with my sister and stay here in the first place? Hey, what are you going to do for your ringtone? Got anything in mind? Without even looking in my direction, Nanami played around with my phone as she prodded me for an answer. Pick an anime song. Overruled! This is exactly why everyone calls you a nerd, big bro. You're the one asking me what I prefer. Come on, it's my phone, so at least let me pick what I want. Oh, I know. How about we use the new Amura Carrera song? It's one of my jams. It's so good. Yeah, no, that's overruled. Yeah, I guess you're right. You're not really an Amura Carrera kind of guy anyway. After showing how little she actually cared about what I thought, Nanami took a bite out of one of her french fries. She took a bite out of it? Just eat the whole thing? I should probably mention that this bitch asked for a fish sandwich combo before dinner, one that I had to pay for. I, meanwhile, was feeling so garbage that my appetite was long gone. Piece of shit sister, spoiling her appetite and mine. Fucking bullshit. Jesus, all the curses out of this lad. Oh yeah, aside from that. For whatever reason, Nanami placed her bag on her lap and started digging through its contents. Where'd I put it? Oh, here it is. Then she proudly took it out. Oh, there it is. A defective Girafroggy. It's not defective. It's the goggling Girafroggy that came out last week. The what? You didn't know? You really do live under a rock. They release a new Girafroggy every Friday. They've made 12 different ones so far. Seriously, was there really enough demand for weekly releases? The one I have on my phone is the first one, the ordinary Girafroggy. This is going to be a plot point. Someone's going to have a certain Girafroggy that could only have come out at a certain time. I don't know. Seems like it's going to be important. After that was the fatty Girafroggy and then the rugged Girafroggy. Without skipping a beat, Nanami recited the names of the various Girafroggies. Fourth was the smooth Girafroggy, fifth was the shining Girafroggy. And sixth was the most popular, the cat Girafroggy. Then came the spooky Girafroggy, the sleepy Girafroggy, the burning Girafroggy, the zombie Girafroggy, and the drunk Girafroggy. How the hell did you remember all of those? Hang on, had she? Have you collected all of them? All of them? Well, duh, there's no point if you don't collect them all. That's why there's such a huge line to buy one every week. For a half-assed piece of garbage like that. To be honest, even I could shit out a better design. Wait, why had she even decided to start lecturing me on Girafroggies to begin with? So yeah, I'm giving you this goggling Girafroggy. Huh? Why? If you hang it on your phone, I bet you some of the girls at school will give you the googly eyes themselves. After saying that, Nanami started to put the strap on my phone. I don't want that. The fuck? There's no point if you don't collect them all, right? If you give me that, your collection won't be complete. Oh, don't worry about that. I bought 2. Do you buy 2 each every time, or...? I was starting to seriously doubt her aesthetic taste. Nah, just this time. I bought an extra one for you and your phone, big bro. No, that's sweet. Purposefully. Purposefully. Having now finished attaching the strap, Nanami gave a satisfied nod before wrapping her mouth around her soda straw. Then she suddenly leaned forward, startling me. Although it's not like I stood in line just for you or anything. I just did it because I could, that's all. I don't want it. What? Still leaning forward, Nanami opened her eyes wide. She looked like she might throttle me at any moment. You don't want it, even though I purposely went out my way to buy it for you. You said you just did it because you could. Besides, I don't care about Girafroggies. If anything, I think they look horrible. This is why you're not popular with girls, big bro. I'd almost expected her to slap me, but surprisingly Nanami managed to rein in her temper and sit back down. Then instead of taking her anger out on me, she started nibbling on a fry instead as she sulked. Well, it's not like there's any point in resisting. I've already put it on after all. Cool. She sure was acting like the queen of everything. Then again, I knew jack shit about cell phones, so it was true that Nanami knew best here. And if you even think about taking it off, you'll be the one standing in the weekly line. Got it? Weekly line? For what exactly? Hello? So you can buy the new Girafroggy? The whole thing usually takes a couple of hours. Not a chance in hell. No way was I gonna let my sister hit me with a threat like that. For a while after that, Nanami wordlessly continued to fiddle around with my phone. I wasn't particularly picky about whatever she was setting up, so I was honestly grateful for the silence. Who's saying that, do you think? To be honest, this all feels kind of strange. Oh, I see. Yeah, okay, cool. It is her. The next time she opened her mouth, her sullen demeanour from before had completely disappeared. I guess she only needed a few minutes to forget anything shit instead of having to sleep it off. Talk about easygoing. In a way, I envied her. Yep, it really is strange. It feels like we haven't gone out like this in forever, big bro. I wonder when the last time we did something like this was. I actually can't remember. You're always cooped up in your room watching anime and playing games, so I guess it only makes sense. But yeah, doing this every once in a while is nice. Gotta shake things up, you know? It'd definitely suck doing this every day though, even for me. Oh, hello. Nanami placed my phone on the table and picked up her fish sandwich. She happily undid the wrapping, then heartily sank her teeth in. Come to think of it, I feel like she'd said at one point that the fish sandwich here was her favourite food. Have fun getting fat, cow. He's such a fucking arse. Nanami instantly stopped moving. She glared at me menacingly. Then, after hesitating for a second, she bashfully held out her half-eaten fish sandwich. Want the other half? You're already too late there. What? Ugh. Saying stuff like that'll make all the girls hate you. You better keep that in mind, you big jerk. Nanami ended up finishing the fish sandwich all on her own. What a fucking fat ass. It's just a sandwich. Alright. Judgment is nigh for this city. After that, Nanami held me hostage with hours of useless chatter. And by the time I finally had my phone back, it was already dark. It had been a long, painful few hours, but eventually I was able to get away from Nanami and start heading back home. Fall seemed to be in full swing now, with the night breeze carrying a slight chill, one that soothed my headache and nausea. Those two things never failed to torment me, whenever I spent a long time in crowds. Honestly, Nanami... okay. Kill yourself, that's what that is, right? Okay, don't actually, but still. KYS. She only ever thought about herself. She probably didn't even have a clue about how much torture she constantly inflicted on me. If I had the option, I'd love to snap my new phone cleanly in half right now, and throw it into the nearest trash can. It wasn't like I'd bought it with my own money after all. But if I actually did that, it wouldn't just be Nanami that had come to my base, but my parents too. And then without picking up on a damn thing, they'd just go, "Oh, since it broke on you, let's go and buy you a new one," like the idiots they were. Thus, I reluctantly suppressed my urges to smash the damn thing. I needed to get home, and quickly. I could hear another night of ESO calling my name. Not a single day had passed recently that hadn't filled me with endless anxiety. I really hoped my peaceful everyday life would hurry up and come back already. On that night, another grotesque case occurred, the fourth new gen case. Like always, Grim laid out the details to me when I was playing ESO. Sup, Grim? A bit later than usual today, eh? What? Whose eyes are those eyes? Why is Grim saying that? I couldn't believe my eyes. Why did Grim know that phrase? I was completely taken aback. My fingers trembled on the keyboard. I didn't even know where to start with responding. Hell, even just looking at what he typed nearly took everything out of me. The fourth new gen case happened. Been following the shitstorm this whole time. Things be really heating up in Shibuya. This one's seriously fucking crazy, dude. Lol. The victim's corpse had all the blood completely drained out. They found them dead. Oh, hang on, what's going on? Right, okay, here we go. The victim's corpse had all the blood completely drained out. They found them dead in the Onakashira station bathroom, and the corpse was really something. The skin had turned green all over. Freaky. Seriously goddamn freaky. Lately I've been starting to think that the occult theories might even be true, to be honest. There's no way a person could do this. I bit my lip as I watched the messages flow. My imagination came very close to forming an image, but I was just barely able to keep that delusion at bay. I took a gulp of cola from the bottle to calm myself somewhat. Damn that Grim. He had to be ambushing me like this on purpose. There's no way a person could do this. Eh? Eh? No reaction. Then there's a little pig. How do you know so much about it? You're almost talking, you're talking almost like you were there. Well, something like that. Also, I guess you're still not interested in this stuff, Neidhart. New gen and all that jazz. Not enough to follow it. Too busy grinding in ESO. Never change. Oh, lightning fast Neidhart. A true video game addict that puts the rest of us to shame. That's why we love you. That's why we admire you. I didn't really want to talk about New Gen, so I somehow managed to fool Grim into bringing the topic to an end. By the way, take a look at this. What do you think? An auction. I'm sensing some serious bait. Last time he'd done this, he'd acted like it was some gory shit only for it to be some random dumbass meme. This time could very well be the opposite. Huh, you seriously don't know about it? About what? Are you actually a wrong side of Neidhart? Fuck off. Fine. What is it? What if I said it's related to your precious Seratan? For real? Then I had to look. As far as I could tell, the URL looked like it linked to some auction page, so it probably wouldn't crash my browser or hit me with anything mentally scarring. Slightly excited, I opened the link. Type B blood in short supply. Huh? Type B blood in short supply. That's what I said. It felt like I'd seen that title somewhere before. Might have been deja vu again. Anyway, more importantly, word at fat-worthy Seratan pic. I spun my mouse wheel and scrolled down the page. I could tell at a glance that the image that came up on my monitor was obviously gore. I averted my gaze to my left monitor in a panic, then quickly closed the browser. The gore had only been on my screen for less than 3 seconds, and the time I spent actually looking at it was even less than that, but even so. It's a picture of the corpse from the 4th New Gen case. It's being sold on an auction like it's the victim's tragic state itself. Hang on. Like it's totally normal. I'm gonna have to look at them in my actual log. Right. It's being sold on auction like it's totally normal. It's like they're putting a price on the victim's tragic state itself. So basically the seller is 100% the new-gen culprit. Isn't that insane? The seller name is Vampire. That's funny. Well, actually it's probably just some throwaway. Even so, this has already caused a total shitstorm online. Being posted all over tons of image boards. There's even memes. It's like Rule 34, people do this shit way too fast. Lol. Oh yeah, did you notice the dying message in the image? Dying message? Oh, is it going to be whose eyes are those eyes? It's written on the wall with the victim's blood. I still can't believe it's there. The culprit probably did it for shits and giggles. Hello? Neidhart-san, you alive? Is your computer frozen? Dying message. I'd only seen the image for an instant, and yet... This is a game. It can't be real. This world can't be real. This has to be a game world. The victim's last message, written sloppily in deep red blood, had been burned into my mind. No matter how much I tried not to think about it, the letters rose one by one on my closed eyelids, urging me to realize them. How? How is that phrase there? I knew those words all too well. Words I'd often murmured to myself. Words I asked nobody in particular. The words Grim had first said when I jumped on ESO. It was like they were everywhere now. Those words that I had never actually said to anyone throughout my entire life. Not good. Pretty damning. Chapter 3, Shogun. Late night Shibuya, 4 AM. Despite being named the city that never sleeps, very few people were currently present at its most popular locale, Scramble Crossing. Instead, many taxis were parked in their place, ready to carry away the drunks unwilling to wait for the first train of the morning. A generous amount of drivers were reclined in their seats napping. The more diligent drivers leaned against the steering wheels as their eyes stared idly toward the hotspots, the most frequent ones being Center Guy and the 107 building. However, they were not trying to ascertain whether or not any of the passerbys were potential customers. Instead, they focused intently on the movements of the sanitation workers who had arrived about 30 minutes before. Oopsie. The 5 to 6 men were thought to be sanitation workers due to their yellow armbands, each of which had sanitation reporter written on them. It was very likely that without the armbands no one would have recognised them as such, but there was something particularly odd about the men. They were all wearing black suits. Furthermore, ever since their arrival, they had yet to show any sign of cleaning at all. Instead, one man held a strange instrument resembling a pendulum, and the surrounding men appeared to be measuring something. This was not restricted to just the one area, however. From the centre of Scramble Crossing to the very edge of it, they left no spot untouched, writing all their findings down on various scraps of paper. Even now, they were taking measurements from directly beneath the traffic signals. Even for me, that one was bad. Silently observing the movements of the pendulum. At last, the instrument let out a small chime. They're the other sanitation reporters. Location L28, 0.62 Mega GE, the highest score yet. It's risen 38 points higher than last month's. Just as expected. But there was no one present in the early morning Shibuya to pay attention to the odd mumbling and behaviour. The taxi drivers would speed off as soon as the patrons boarded their cars, quickly forgetting about the mysterious sanitation workers. The drunks were hardly conscious, leaving them unable to see anything around them to begin with. Female nightlife workers who had just clocked out, finally free from the stress of smiling at repulsive drunkards, jumped into taxis to get home as soon as possible. Thus not a single person was around to notice that the government had not scheduled any plans whatsoever for cleaning to take place that morning. Interesting. Things are developing. Vampire. Even after the weekend had passed, the uproar brought on by the fourth new-gen case, now dubbed the Vampire incident, hadn't even come close to calming down. A man's corpse had been found with all its blood taken out of it, leaving the surface of the body a sickly, inhuman shade of green. It had been discovered in a bathroom at the Shibuya station, a part of the Inokashira line. In addition, it was uncovered that a photograph of the corpse had been posted to an online auction and considered the abnormality and brutality of the murder. Considering it, it was inevitable that both the mass media and the channel jumped on it. Special attention had been paid to the headline of the auction page, which read, "Type B blood in short supply." Tissue packs advertising an upcoming blood drive had been handed out in large quantities in front of Shibuya Station a few days prior to the incident, and the exact same message had been written on them. I had one of those tissue packs on hand. Reading back over it again now, the insanely strange words didn't read like an ad for a blood drive anymore. They read like some kind of advanced message of the crime. The police had supposedly been searching for the part-timers handing out the tissue packs, but they'd yet to find any of them. I hope it's not just going to be that I was the one that killing everyone. That would suck. I'm sure it's not going to be that, though. However, there was one area where the vampire differed pretty heavily from the previous cases. While there had already been elements of it in the crucifixion case, the intent for it to be a theatrical crime was much more obvious with this one. A few media outlets had been clamouring for increased police presence via patrols, or for a late-night curfew for people under 18. But the number of young people visiting the city showed no signs of declining. They were just as packed as usual, with people flooding every nook and cranny of Sentagai and Scramble Crossing. The internet was so thirsty for news. A group of people trying to be Snake had snuck into Shibuya late at night to post live updates. And there had also been a phrase that was trending among the city's younger population. Whose eyes are those eyes? It wasn't just online either. That phrase had penetrated the ranks of each and every DQN walking around Shibuya. On our channel, it had become common practice to tack the phrase onto anything, regardless if it was related or not. This week's episode of Blood Chew won't have much Serotan. Whose eyes are those eyes? The new patch's weapons are so weak they're actually unusable. Whose eyes are those eyes? What whose eyes are those eyes is that from? And so on. To people my age, New Gen was probably just something new and exciting to follow, the newest shitstorm, or shit show, to obsess over, but to me it was the most aggravating thing possible. Regardless, a whole 3 days have passed since the vampire case, so I've been able to calm down a little. Of course, there was still a nagging uneasiness in the corner of my mind, but by losing myself in ESO over the weekend, I've been able to temporarily forget about all that irritating, inexplicable garbage. Even though I'd had to go to school today, I'd been able to get through my classes by either sleeping through them or thinking about the stats and frame data of ESO's rarest items. I guess I'd leveled up a little bit. And so, on my way home from school, I stopped by at Cafe for the first time in a while. It made me happy to see that the room I usually used, room 37, was vacant and ready for me. The last time I set foot in it was at least 2 weeks ago, meaning that this was the longest gap I'd ever had between visits. The sour breeze flowing through the air conditioning, the manga stained with the smell of tobacco, how comfortable it was to sit back in the recliner, the snores of old men cutting through the silent, still air. It all provided the score's interior with an aura of pure nostalgia. I inspected the chat logs on Room 37's PC. And that's when I realised both members of that chat log were you. This Shogun is you. Nice little memory from Yua. I hadn't seen Yua since then. We were in different grades and I didn't go to school that often, so it made sense why we hadn't come across each other. Yua's got some incredible delusions. I couldn't help but pity her. She was clearly sick in the head. I'd be better off just leaving her be. Besides, meeting her at all had been a freak accident. Over the past 2 weeks or so, I'd been dragged into all sorts of random bullshit. Before then, my everyday life had been completely vanilla, and Masumi-kun was pretty much the only one who'd talk to me. So why was it that basically nothing but weird, inexplicable bullshit had been happening to me recently? Whose eyes are those eyes? I wanted to avoid thinking about that garbage as much as humanly possible. That dying message had to just be a coincidence. A coinky-dink, as it were. The words were all pretty common after all. If I'd thought of it, there was no reason someone else wouldn't have been able to as well. I had no interest in who that message was aimed at. No, I couldn't be interested. That was what I told myself anyhow. Suddenly, something started ringing nearby. I jolted up in surprise, and a shudder ran through me as I stayed rooted in my recliner. It was the sound of a phone ringing, but whose was it? Because the store was so quiet, the electronic sound rang out, all the louder. I looked around, but I couldn't locate a phone anywhere. Wait, maybe it's... A thought came to my mind, and I fished around in my bag. Sure enough, the ringing was coming from the cell phone I'd bought just a few days prior. I glanced warily at the LCD display. Normally the caller's name would be displayed there. Was it a good idea to answer? I didn't like talking to people that much, so probably not. Who the hell was calling me anyway? I hadn't told anyone my phone number yet. The only people who knew it even existed were my family, with Nanami's nosy ass making sure to put them in my address book. When one of the people registered in my address book called, their name should display, meaning that whoever was calling wasn't a family member. So, who was this? The phone kept on ringing persistently. Did people who had phones usually force people to listen to the ringing for this long? I'd never used one of them before, so I wouldn't know, but it was incredibly annoying. To suddenly invade someone's privacy like this, cursing them with an obnoxious ringing until they picked up. A socially acceptable way to invade someone's privacy. That was exactly why I didn't want one of those stupid things. Oh, it stopped. Relieved, I checked the screen again. Missed calls, 1 was displayed on it. I'd no interest in returning the rando's call, so I decided to leave it be. It'd be a pain in the ass if this happened again in the future. So I should really figure out how to set up my voicemail. Ugh, cell phones were such a pain in the ass. I didn't even like phones to begin with. I mean, come on. They were freaky as hell. How exactly were you supposed to know if the person you were talking to on the other end was the actual person you thought it was? With how prevalent fraud was nowadays, were people actually taking the proper measures to make sure they were talking to the right person? I couldn't help but wonder how people would be able to calmly have a conversation with someone who might be an impersonator or imposter. Even if I understood the gist of how it worked, it was hard to believe that my voice could somehow reach distant places through a phone line. When you talk on the phone, your voice is temporarily converted into electrical signals. They pass through the phone lines until they reach the recipient, where they are then restored back to normal. That's when they become audible. In order to talk on the phone, you need to go through this conversation process at least twice. With a cell phone, your voice is first converted into electrical signals. Then it travels to a nearby base station via radio waves, which then run through normal phone lines to the switching station, then to the closest base station to the recipient, before finally arriving at the cell phone right afterward. It was a bizarre, complicated process. If my voice was replaced by electrical signals, could the other party really hear my voice for word for word, exactly as I'd sent it? In fact, wasn't it possible that in the conversion process my voice and my words could be transformed into something completely different? For instance, if I called Nanami but instead of connecting to her, it connected to some strange, shady facility, and there I'd end up talking to someone I'd never met, who was only pretending to be Nanami. Maybe they wouldn't even be a person but a computer instead. That was the big reason why phone calls freaked me out so much. They were even scarier than talking to someone face to face. When I'd logged into ESO as Lysolot, as was often the case, 3 hours passed by in the blink of an eye. Whose eye? It had been 2 weeks since I'd last used her, but she made for a pretty good support, so I was feeling pretty satisfied. I left that cafe in a good mood and started heading home. Centre Guy was as packed and noisy as usual, which irritated me. The bright lights illuminating the streets from the various shops made it hard to believe it was nighttime. And at the end of the well-lit road, despite the crowds, I clearly saw her, causing me to stop dead in my tracks. That one girl. In the midst of so many people, she glared directly at me. Right smack in the middle of the Centre Guy, where people were coming and going without a reprieve, where it was difficult to even walk straight. She stood still, resting the gigantic sword she carried on her shoulder. The spectacle was completely absurd. And yet, no one paid her sword any mind. The stream of people flowed right past her, with no change in demeanour. She was the girl I'd seen at 107. She'd been there with Nanami, when Nanami was dragging me around to buy a new cell phone. The shape of her sword, her Sumai uniform, her long black hair, everything matched perfectly. Back then, she'd been standing at the top of the stairs in front of the 107, watching the passers-by come and go. And I remembered the sharpness of her glare. I'd met her once before, at school. She had these almond-shaped eyes and clean-cut model-like features, and yet they only served to make her seem all the more unapproachable. And it was all capped off by that long, silky black hair that stretched all the way down to her waist. She was Girl B, the one who had so rudely probed me in the corridors after school one day, asking me who I was. Come to think of it, why was she glaring at me? And we'll find out next time why she's glaring at her. Next time on Borderline Games. Thank you so much for watching this episode of Chaos Head, and I will see you next time. Have a good evening. Take care of yourselves. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.